Welcome to the Fantasy Football Endgame with your hosts, Pierre Camus and Chris Moncano.
Everybody, welcome to the Fantasy Football Endgame. I'm Pierre. With me is Chris, and we're here to talk fantasy football. Week 5, that's right. We're already a quarter of the way into the season, the fantasy season at least. It's hard to believe, but here we are. You're either in a good spot, hoping to continue to lead your league, or you need some help. All right, if you're at 1-3, don't worry, there's still time. 0-4, maybe kind of get your finger near the panic button. Don't push it just yet. We're here to help. Right now, we're going to talk about tight ends. So, Chris, at the tight end position, not a whole lot has changed, right? The studs are still the studs, but you might be missing some guys this week, right? We got Fant is doubtful. If you've been playing TJ Hawkinson, he's on bye. The tight end landscape, though, not too crazy. At least that's good.
Yeah, it is what it is. You got like Kelsey and Kittle, and then and Andrews, I guess, because Andrews bounced back, and then you just kind of have everybody else, and you hope, like, yeah, that's how I feel about the tight end position, right? You got maybe Darren Waller can be in there because he's had a couple really good games, but yeah, you just got everybody else, and they're all kind of the same, and you hope that the guy you have has a big game that week.
Yeah, the couple of years that we've been doing this on YouTube, at least it's we can't ever get super jacked about tight ends. Like, it just doesn't do it. It's just not the same. But I always feel like it's kind of that hidden thing. Like, it's more important than you realize, because you think, oh well, whatever. I don't have one of those top 5 guys. I'll just play whoever. It can be a difference maker, right? How many times you lose or win a game, by a couple of points. So
in my home league, I took Travis Kelce in the second round, which I almost never do, but it's only a two running back, 2 wide receiver, 1 flex league. So you're not starting a lot of players. And I'm like, just give me that week in, week out tight end one that I don't have to worry about. And it's such a huge advantage because last week he only had like 10 against Patriots, but the Patriots shut down tight ends. But it gets you 15 to 20 points every week, and you're playing against people whose tight ends get them like 5 points, and you just crush them at the position. So yeah, it is nice. It is very nice.
It definitely makes a difference. It adds up too, right? But let's talk about a guy like Zach Ertz, who was supposed to be that, right? Remember, it was a couple of years ago, it was the big 3, right? He was right there. And then last year, we kind of still thought and hoped maybe he was in that upper tier. I don't even know if he's a tier 1 tight end anymore. Last week, 9 yards, right? And that was on 4 catches for 9 yards. All right, Dallas Goedert is out. That should have helped, right? He should be getting more action. This offense, obviously, we know struggling, but again, all the receivers are hurt. Goddard is out. Why isn't Ertz doing better? And what's wrong? Are you legitimately concerned enough? You might even put him on your bench.
Oh man, yeah. I talked about him in my panic video, which you can go back and watch. I don't know what's going on. It doesn't make sense because, like you said, no Goddard. Like, it made sense in the beginning when Goddard was kind of breaking out, and you're like, okay, it's a 2-headed tight end monster. It's going to be some Zach Ertz weeks, and there's going to be some Dallas Goedert weeks. But now Goddard's not even there. They have Greg Ward is their number one wide receiver. Like, you would think Carson Wentz would just be force feeding it to Zach Ertz. So I don't know if Zach Ertz is just breaking down, if he's got an injury that we haven't heard about, is he not getting separation, is Wentz just not looking for him? I don't know, but whatever it is, it adds up to not good if you have Zach Ertz. I don't know if I can bench him. It's not the greatest matchup against the Steelers. Granted, the Steelers haven't played against any elite tight ends. The one of significance, 4 catches, 57 yards, and a touchdown, and Noah Fant. But again, without that touchdown, you're only looking at 9 points. So I don't know. I think you got to roll Zach Ertz out just because, like, who else are you playing over Zach Ertz that you feel great about that's still on the waivers? Because guys like Dalton Schultz, he's probably not on your waivers anymore, right? Guys like that aren't on your waivers anymore, more than likely. So, yeah, I think you got to roll with Zach Ertz and just hope for the best, but I am definitely concerned.
Yeah, probably you don't have somebody who really has the upside that he does. And you almost hate to overreact to a really bad game because he could easily come back and have a big game. But just worried about the Philly offense in general, especially Wentz not having a good year. So it just might affect everybody on that team. And it's too early to judge Pittsburgh defense. Of course, they've only played 3 games, took their bye a little early. And they looked really, really good in one game. Then they looked kind of suspect in another game. So, yeah, I'd say you kind of have to just keep them in there and hope for the best. I think the same might be said for Evan Engram, although I don't know how many people had kept him in their lineup. You were probably hoping for better. Hasn't done what we hoped. Obviously, Barkley out, Shepard's on our. I mean, the opportunity is there, and it just isn't happening. Um, but you know what cures all? It's the Dallas defense. Is it going to cure Evan Engram enough that you're putting him in your lineup this week?
Yeah, I think it is. I feel good about Evan Engram this week. I talked about it on the wide receiver video, which you should go back and watch if you haven't yet. I like this entire passing game this week. And here's the thing about and you're right, Evan Engram, kind of like Zach Ertz, it's like, why hasn't this been happening? There's no Shepard, there's no Barkley. He should be lighting it up. On the plus side for Evan Engram, he's had in his 4 games, he's had 7 targets, 8 targets, 5 targets, and 10 targets. So it's not like Daniel Jones isn't looking for him. Daniel Jones, and I don't know if it's because of Jason Garrett or if it's just this is who Daniel Jones is, but he has been really, really bad this year, really bad, taking a huge step back. But like you said, Dallas might be the cure that they need. So I do really like Evan Engram this week. I like this whole Giants passing attack. So yeah, if you have Evan Engram and if you benched him last week or if you've been frustrated with him and you're thinking about benching him, give him another chance this week because I think he has a big week.
Well, I'll just tell you right now, because I live currently in San Antonio, Texas, which is, it's not Dallas, but it's close, and there's no pro team here. So this is basically Cowboy country. Like everybody here's a Cowboys fan. So one thing I've learned over the years is that everything is Jason Garrett's fault. Everything. All right. So there's that. But no, Jones has always been turnover prone. That's nothing new. Really, last year, if you look, he was total boomer bust. He put up some big numbers against bad defenses. And then he was kind of bad against the other teams, but this is a really, really bad defense. Dallas's defense is terrible because of injury mainly, right? I mean, without Van Der Esch, their best linebacker, right? Their secondary's been banged up. So, maybe not to their own fault, but yeah, this is too good of a spot, I think, to pass up. You have to start Engram because, again, he is getting the opportunity, like you said. I don't know if I'm playing Daniel Jones this week, but I'm definitely playing Engram. Are you playing Hayden Hurst? He's a guy that we've talked about it. We actually talked about it quite a bit on the wide receiver episode too. That whole receiving core for Atlanta is banged up. Does that work in Hurst's favor? Because I don't think Julio plays. I mean, that's just my gut telling me that he shouldn't play. Ridley, who knows? Gage, even if he plays, he hasn't done much lately. So, do you think that Hurst is somebody who kind of fits that low end tight end 1 mold?
Yeah, I do because, I don't think Julio is going to play. We don't know about how healthy Ridley is. So that was my thing. I had Hurst as my bust last week, but that's because I thought Julio would be healthy and be out there in full force. He wasn't. And so, Hayden Hurst had a nice game, 4 catches, 51 yards. And we know he can always score a touchdown. So I do actually like Hurst this week, as a streaming option or like a low end tight end 1. That you can put in your lineup and feel fairly good about. I mean, obviously there's some risk, right? There's definitely some risk, but there's risk with Zach Ertz and Evan Engram these days. So there's risk with all these tight ends. So I think you can feel pretty good about Hayden Hurst this week, especially if Julio doesn't play, which I don't think he will.
Yeah, he's at least startable, I would say, just because, they're going to pass, right? They're going to have to pass. What about last year's Falcons tight end? That would be Austin Hooper. I've had him as my bust, I think, the last 2-3 weeks in a row. He hasn't really let me down kind of last week because he scored a touchdown, but only 34 yards. And again, this was against the Dallas defense, so I guess I should have known better. I didn't think that Cleveland was going to score like 1 million points, but going against Indy, which is the best pass defense statistically right now, there's no way you could start Austin Hooper, right?
No, because this is the opposite of Evan Engram in the terms of, they've both. Well, I know Evan Engram was drafted much higher than Austin Hooper in fantasy drafts, but people were pretty excited about Austin Hooper in Cleveland, right? But you look at his targets, 2, 4, 4, and then he got 7 last week. But again, against a terrible Dallas defense. Now he goes against Colts. If he's only getting you 2 targets or 4 targets a game, and especially with Mayfield, that's only 2 or 3 catches. You really, 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 really have to have a touchdown. Like you have to have a touchdown. And I just don't know if we can say for sure you're going to get a touchdown this week against Indy. So no, I don't want any part of Austin Hooper this week.
And don't forget, I know I said in another episode too, no Nick Chubb. That affects the whole offense. They're going to have a harder time moving the chains, less opportunity just all around. So probably a low scoring kind of ugly game. That's enough for me to back off of Hooper. Other side of the equation here, that same game. What about Mo Alie-Cox? Because Cleveland's defense is really generous to the tight end. It's a great matchup specifically because Cleveland allowing the 5th most fantasy points per game to the tight end. But here's the thing. Trey Burton's back. Jack Doyle is back. So it's not like he's going to get all the targets in this offense. It's spreading it around, maybe too thin. I think that Mo Alie-Cox definitely has the most upside. Is that matchup enough to kind of entice you into streaming over a guy, obviously Hooper? If you're down on Ertz, I mean, how high do you have him this week?
No, I wouldn't play him over Ertz, Engram, or Hayden Hurst, simply because of what you said. They have 3 tight ends now. They're 3 healthy tight ends. So the target share just isn't going to be there. Now we know he can catch a touchdown. He got a touchdown last week, but it wasn't one of those where Phillip Rivers threw it to him in the end zone. He caught a short pass, broke a tackle, made a great play, and ran into the end zone, which is great. It shows his athleticism and his ability. But you really want tight ends that are targeted in the end zone because it makes it much easier to catch a touchdown, right? So yeah, with Phillip Rivers, I mean, he's spreading the ball to like everybody. Like 20 guys are getting targets on this team. I mean, not really, but it seems like it. And they're really just because that defense is so good and they're always in the lead, they're just running the ball a bunch, right? They're just slowing the pace, running the ball. I mean, between Wilkins, Hines, and Taylor, they had over 30 rush attempts last year, right? And Phillip Rivers chipped in with 3 more. So they're just running the ball, running out the clock, keeping it slow, letting the defense do the heavy lifting. And I don't think that's going to be an issue against the Browns this week. So I mean, he's okay as a streamer in like deeper leagues, but I wouldn't start him over those other guys.
Yeah, I think he's a little too touchdown dependent. Like you said, I think it was 9 different players on the Colts caught a pass last week. 10 were targeted. So that's great for their offense that they're balanced. It's not great for a fantasy standpoint because you can't trust any of their receivers or tight ends specifically. The only thing I would say is, just because of the matchup, I probably would start Mo Alie-Cox only if, you have somebody obviously, who's on bye, or if you have Noah Fant, who doesn't look like he's going to play and you have to plug in somebody. If you just stream tight end or the guy that I'm going to mention in a second, that's my bust for this week. But first, let's start with the booms. So at the tight end position, who you feel good about in week 5?
Well, I'm going really deep here. This is a kind of a preseason sleeper at tight end. Hasn't done anything, but I think this is the 1 week where you can play him. I mean, you probably don't have him on your team anymore. He's probably still on waivers, and that's Ian Thomas for Carolina. And that's only because he's going against the Falcons. The Falcons are the worst defense against tight ends. In week 1, they gave up 7 catches, 41 yards, and a touchdown to the Seahawks tight ends. They got torched by Dalton Schultz, but Dalton Schultz looks good. In week 3, Jimmy Graham, who I thought was retired, put up 9 catches, 75 yards, and 2 touchdowns against them. And then last week, Robert Tonyan, who everybody's going to think is the second coming of I don't know, Antonio Gates or whatever, put up 6 catches, 98 yards, and 3 touchdowns against them. So it's not like they're getting destroyed by top tier tight ends like Travis Kelce or George Kittle. So I still think now I don't expect Ian Thomas to score 2 touchdowns or 3 touchdowns, but I think he's going to have a good game this week. I think he's going to finish as a top 10 tight end simply because of this matchup. So yeah, I like Ian Thomas as my boom.
Hey, you're going top 10. I mean, that's saying start him if you got him, basically, unless you already have a top tight end, in which case you're not watching this anyway. So yeah, that's pretty good endorsement. I'll tell you, I was nervous watching that game a little bit. They were throwing the ball to, I think, Cameron Manhertz, right? The other tight end who had never heard of it. I'm like, okay, so I guess they don't like Ian Thomas anymore. But then they came back to him and got that touchdown. But he did see his targets go up, so that's good. All right, I'm going pretty deep too. Again, hopefully you don't have to dig this deep, but some of you are in really deep competitive leagues. You're dealing with an injury or a bye, or you just like to stream the position. I like Darren Fells this week. in Houston. Akins, it looks like, was going to be their top target at tight end, out with a concussion. Jordan Thomas is gone. I think he's in Arizona now. That's it, right? Darren Fells is the guy. And got to pour one out for Cahill Warring, my really deep tight end sleeper who is out for the season. That's not going to happen. But Darren Fells, he's going to get some targets. This offense needs to show something, right? Just if anything else to show Bill O'Brien. So going against Jacksonville, that's a bad pass defense. Darren Fells. All right. And your bust at tight end.
I'm going with Dalton Schultz. I know he's had a breakout to start the season. He's been, a great waiver wire pickup at tight end. But in this matchup against the Giants are terrible on defense against everybody except tight ends. They're actually good against tight ends. They can't stop the running backs. They can't stop the receivers. So I think this is going to be a Gallup, CeeDee Lamb, Amari Cooper game, Zeke Elliott game. Because one of these guys every week has to take a backseat. Like, they can't all go off. Even when Dak Prescott is throwing for 500 yards, they can't all go off. So I think this week, Dalton Schultz takes the backseat. So, yeah, I wouldn't – I get it. You got to start Dalton Schultz. Temper expectations. It'll be better. But I think this week is not a Dalton Schultz week.
I agree. And I'll say just in general, I think that might be a much lower scoring game than people think. Just throwing it out there. And Higbee did nothing, close to nothing last week against the Giants. So I'm on board with that. It saddens me to make this pick, but again, it's not about loyalty. It's not about fandom. It's about helping you win. So Mike Gesicki, got to be on my bench this week. I know he's looked like a monster the first couple of weeks. He has not last couple of weeks. And this matchup, you just can't. All right, San Francisco, even if it's not the same Niners defense from last year, it doesn't matter. They still hate letting tight ends catch the ball. Right, a tight end hasn't gone for over 22 yards in a game yet this season. All right, and they've gone up against some decent ones. So you just can't. Just don't do it. Bench Gesicki, start Fells, start Ian Thomas, maybe start Mo Alie-Cox. All right. Well, that'll do it for tight ends. That's week 5. Starts it. If you have more specific questions about this or any position, follow us first at Endgame Fantasy. You can hit us up there. You can follow us on Twitter. I'm at Roto_Chef. He's at Chris Mangano. And you can leave us a comment here on this YouTube channel. All right. Give us a thumbs up if you like what you saw and come back next week. All right, guys. Thanks for watching.